Hi, in this tutorial we are going to learn how to break circular references. A formula in a cell that directly or indirectly refers to its own cell is called a circular reference. One of the most common instances of circular reference in financial modeling is that of interest during construction or the IDC. As the name suggests, it is the interest which is incurred during the construction period. Instead of being serviced, this interest amount is added to the loan amount or capitalized. The treatment is different from the operation period, as during operation period there is a cash inflow which can be used for servicing interest, whereas during construction period there is none available and hence the same is capitalized. So here I have some inputs and given for calculation of interest during construction. We have the interest rate as 10%, the construction period is for 10 years and the opening loan balance which is to be drawn down in the first period is 12 million USD. We've been told here that no repayment will be made during the construction period. For the calculation part, this is how our schedule will look like. We have the opening balance, the drawdown amount, then the interest. Since it is being capitalized, it will be one of the components of the loan, and then we have the closing balance. The closing balance will be the sum of all the three components, the opening balance, drawdown, as well as the interest amount. So if we were to calculate the interest amount using the traditional method, we will find a circular reference. Now let's see what we mean by that. The interest will be average of the opening and the closing balance multiplied by the interest rate. So I'm going to use the average function, select the opening and the closing balance and multiply it by the rate. Once I do that, we get a dialog box saying that there is one or more circular reference in the workbook which might cause the formula to calculate incorrectly. We press OK, and as you can see here that the interest amount is coming 0, which we know is incorrect because we do have a value in closing balance. So we can see that it's not calculating correctly and we have a circular reference as indicated by these arrows. So this is happening because we are using closing balance to calculate interest, whereas for calculating closing balance also we have interest as one of its component. So this is where the circularity is flowing from. So what we are going to do is to calculate the interest amount, we'll come to another row. Here we are calculating interest in row 19. We are taking the average of opening and closing balance and multiplying it by the interest rate. Here we don't have any circular reference because row 19 is not being used for calculation of closing balance. And what we are going to do is we are going to create a macro, that is use a VBA coding to create a copy paste macro which will paste the calculations which are done over here in this row in row 15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this as interest copy so that we'll remember that this is the interest which will be used for copying, and here I will write it as interest paste. We have created a check here which will basically tell us if there is any difference between interest paste and interest copy. The goal is to make sure that there is no difference between the two. I'm also going to take sum of all the differences. Now the next step would be naming all the cell ranges. So what I'm going to do is wherever we are calculating the interest paste, I'm going to give it a cell name. I'll write it as interest paste. Then interest copy, I'm going to give it the range name as interest underscore copy, and wherever I've taken the sum of the check, I'll give it a name as interest check. Once this is done, we'll write our macro code. So to write a macro code, we need the developer tab in our ribbon. So if you don't have it, what you can do is you can go to the file option, go to options. In options, go to add-ins. So we get the developer tab in our analysis toolpack and analysis toolpack VBA. In case it is not there in our active application add-in, you'll find it in our inactive application add-ins. All you need to do is select them here by clicking on them and then press on OK. You will automatically have it on the ribbon thereafter. So here I already have the developer tab. What I'm going to do is I'll click on it and I'll select insert and I'll insert a button here. A button is basically a shape, and if you click on it, it performs some function. So here I'm letting my macro name be button3 underscore click. We are going to write a new macro and hence I'll select new. So this is our VBA application window. And here is where we are going to write the code. So you don't need to write the code. If you have followed and given the name ranges correctly as I have done, you can just paste the code which is given below in the comments section. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll just take the shortcut and I'll copy the code. So this is the code that we'll be going with. What it is basically saying is that it is giving some commands, the first of which is it is asking the Excel to clear the contents of the range interest paste. Then the second command is do until the value of the range interest check is less than 0.01. Now this number 0.01 is just the tolerance limit. You can increase it or decrease it and it would make no difference at all. The only thing is it won't be exactly 0, so you can just give it a value. Then it is asking us to paste the value of interest copy to interest range and then calculate. And all this has to happen until the range value of interest check is less than 0.01, which is less than tolerance. That is the meaning of loop. Loop means that it keeps on calculating again and again until the specified result is achieved. So once this is done, we'll check if our macro is working properly and we'll just press the run button. We'll close it. This macro is already saved. And as you can see that we already have the calculations done. I'll just format them and make it into 2 decimal places. So as you can see here, the interest check value is 0.002102, which is less than the tolerance of 0.01. Once I format it, you can almost see that it's 0. So now you can see that we can calculate the interest. The link is only in in row 19 for the range interest copy. Interest paste has no linkages, it's just a mirror image of whatever calculation is here in row 19. So if I change my opening balance, let's say to 15 million USD, I will need to click on my macro button again. And as you can see, I'll get the new values. So whenever you change the opening balance or the interest rate or any other parameter which is used for calculation, you need to click on the button and then the macro will work again. To save this workbook, what we need to do is we'll go to the file, we'll save as, and here we need to save it as a macro enabled workbook. So any workbook which contains a macro should be saved as a macro enabled workbook. So I hope this tutorial was useful. Thanks for watching.